Hey there, and welcome to What Happens Next with Ben and Philip. I'm Ben.
I'm Philip.
And, mate, I want to talk to you about something that's been on my mind for a while. It relates to turning 40.
Jeez. Has that already happened to you?
Yeah, it has.
Jeez.
It has.
You wouldn't pick it. Honestly, you would not pick it.
Mate, your generosity is appreciated.
I mean, I know you got those glasses not long ago, but you're still looking pretty good.
Well, I think if you're going to get glasses at any point in history, getting glasses in the era of hipster is the best time to get them.
Yeah.
Like, if anything, you want glasses.
And having glasses when you have a naturally occurring beard, as you do, is also a very nice combination.
See, if I'd had glasses when I was a kid in the 60s, like in Wonder Years, remember that kid who was the best friend of the lead character?
Paul Pfeiffer.
Exactly. See, if I was Paul Pfeiffer back then, punished. 2017, love and life.
Do you remember there was an urban myth when we were in high school that Marilyn Manson was the kid that played Paul Pfeiffer in the Wonder Years?
I do.
Turned out that was not the case.
Speaking of Paul Pfeiffer actually went on to become a New York lawyer.
The guy that played Paul Pfeiffer, or
No, the guy that played him in real life.
okay, yeah, not the character in like the Wonder Years.
Not
the Wonder Years 20 years later.
Yeah, not in my web series fictional spin-off I've created by myself over the last 20 years with mainly unreleased episodes. No, not that.
And when Fred Savage and Winnie Cooper have the big roll in the hay at the key episode, you know, they have a child and then he has his own series and he later invests his money with the Paul Pfeiffer character or something.
Well, I think they've actually done spin-offs already of those types of shows. There was that one called The Goldbergs that was essentially a American network TV version like the Wonder Years set in the 80s. And apparently, I think it was How I Met Your Mother, that whole voiceover thing was inspired by Daniel Stern's voiceover that defined the Wonder Years.
Ah, okay. Interesting.
Anyway, getting older, you start looking back at what you've achieved and looking forward at what you still can achieve.
Yeah. It's a good time in life.
For better or worse. So I was thinking something that I reckon 1 in 5 people, mainly men, think this once they get past 30. And that is, okay, if I train really, really hard for the next 3 to 4 years, what Olympic sport could I possibly get into to represent my country? And how realistic is that? So what happens next if we seriously put our minds to it, not as a little sort of daydream whilst waiting for a takeaway coffee at lunchtime, but totally seriously, if you and I put our minds together, the brains trust, what do you reckon is the one sport, and if this includes the Winter Olympics, that if we start training right now for the next Olympics, which are being held where?
Is it Russia?
Russia. All right. We were so committed already, aren't we?
I think they recently announced that people are so disinterested in the Olympics these days, unfortunately, that they just announced that LA and Paris are going to host the next 2 Olympics after the ones that are already decided. And they just sort of went, who wants it first, LA or Paris? And they sort of went, are we happy to have the first one? And so they went, okay, Paris, you can have 2022 or whatever. And they went, okay, LA, you can have 2026. They were like the only 2 people who were cities that were actually remotely interested in having them. That's kind of how it all went down. We remember well when the 2000 Olympics, it was like national holiday. It was like party time. Like, oh my God, I can't believe in 15 years' time we're going to have the Olympics. And then this is now, it's just like, oh yeah, well, who wants it? Oh, you want it? Okay, yeah, you can have it.
All right, let's segue for a second. Let's double up. Let's park ourselves in here because that's a good point. The Olympics were at a time something that was just an event. Yet, despite sport being so valuable right now because sport can't be pirated, it's one of the few things that has an immediacy, and every season it starts again. It's a total reboot and it's endless. It's like the Game of Thrones without an ending, and every season is a chance of redemption to win the flag, win the trophy, win the tournament for whatever sport you're in. But weirdly, the Olympics, which essentially everyone's got blue balls for 4 years, and there's this huge pent-up tension for something that happens so infrequently.
Yeah.
It has just died away. It was the free-to-air, the broadcasters' event of choice.
It was, yeah, they would have just carved that in stone into their budgets and gone, yep, at least we've got the Olympics in 4 years' time. We'll chalk up another $100 million profit that year or whatever. I think last week's one of our networks was like writing down money that they've already bid on the next Olympics as a total write-off, knowing they're never going to recoup it with ad sales.
And I think as well, like some of those other major sporting events, like in Australia, the Australian Open, where they would use that as a platform to advertise their upcoming programs in peak season.
Which shits me to tears no end. But anyway, go on.
No, you go.
I can't watch the Australian Open anymore. I just can't stand it. And it just goes for 2 weeks. It's appalling.
I always wondered with Australian coverage of the tennis, because you're essentially setting up a mini company to cover one event for a short time, unlike a regular sport like, for example, Aussie Rules or League or Union, where you know it's on every season and lasts for months and months and months. Something like a tennis tournament, it's only 2 weeks. So it's a lot of setup for a very short event. I've always wondered, people like Jim Courier and John McEnroe, who are commentators, and those courtside guys that get a lot of sort of one-on-one time after a match with the players, are they agents that just get hired for that job and go work for ESPN in States and so on?
Yeah. And they would actually probably be working for an American network during the Australian Open as well. So they'd commentate for a match involving an Australian, which is a big prompt. Like then if Tomic was playing on centre court at 7:30 at night, they'd commentate on that match. But then, you know, if Serena was playing the next day, they'd commentate on that for ESPN in America or something. And so they're getting paid by both networks to be available during the whole tournament.
I've got to say, they're the consummate professionals in that case, because they always have some banter and rapport with the commentators, and it makes you think that they are only serving the master of, say, the Australian broadcaster. But if they're doing the ESPN or another broadcaster in the States in the same tournament and doing the same witty banter, that's pretty good of them.
I could be wrong, but I think McEnroe definitely would be doing the American as well as the Australian, but I just can't imagine that Courier would come all the way down here just to do. I know particularly for our cricket-loving audience, of which I'm sure most of the world are, for example, if there's an English cricket team is down here next year for the Ashes, so the guys who normally commentate for the BBC in London for the English cricket, they'll come down here with the BBC. They'll do like a stint on the ABC radio, and then they'll go back into the British box and do the British radio. So they do like 20 minutes in each or something.
Yeah, I think Richie Benaud, who we always associated, rest in peace, as the definitive Australian commentator, none of us realised that he then spent half his year in the UK doing exactly the same thing.
Yeah. And just on that, like, they did try that with the cricket, where they tried to get the cricket commentators to talk up, you know, some new show that was going to be on, and people just rebelled against it. I mean, I think they still do it to a certain degree, but particularly with some of the more respected commentators like Richie, people just couldn't take to him flogging some crappy show that was going to be on after the cricket.
I think it also comes down to the reputation of the commentator and their age. If you had someone like Richie Benaud reading a plug for, say, The Bachelor or something, or Restaurant Rules, he would sound like the guy in the orange jumpsuit about to be beheaded reading from the, you know, auto cue on some sort of terrorist video. It would sound so forced, and often did sound forced. Was when the younger guys like Slater or Michael Clark and those types of guys, at least they were of a 2 generations below who were probably closer to the demographic, and those programs.
They probably would watch The Block or some flog of a show like that. But, you know, you watch the US Masters and the commentators whisper about Amin Connor and Arnold Palmer and Jack Nicklaus. They don't go, and don't forget, when the Masters is all over, we got this new show starting on NBC. It's just like, really? Of course they wouldn't do that. It's a shame. But anyway, I mean, I know it's all got to be paid for somehow. But anyway, getting back to the Olympics.
All right. So getting back to the Olympic Games, I'm thinking to myself, I'm getting older. If we applied ourselves, tell me this. What happens next if we want to try and apply ourselves to get into the next Olympic Games in 3 years from now? What sports do you reckon us middle-aged characters could get into? Team sports or single sports, doesn't matter. I'd prefer to say Summer Games because there's more prestige with the Summer Games, but, you know, Cool Runnings, those crazy Jamaicans who've gone to the bobsled in the Winter Games, gives validity to a Winter Games gold medal. So we can go for those as well. But what sports come to mind that you and I, individually or collectively, could possibly get into if we applied ourselves after work between family responsibilities in the next 3 years?
I think we can do this by a process of elimination. From my perspective, track and field is out, not particularly fast, not great at stamina.
Hang on. Let's not rule them out too quickly. So we can't do running. We can't do short distance or long distance. I agree.
Not to Olympic standard.
We can't do any jumping or throwing.
Gone.
Okay, so basically anything in an arena.
I think track and field is gone.
All right, okay, moving on.
Swimming, gone, not interested anyway, but gone. We'll come back to swimming.
Agree.
You got to look at the sports where you have older competitors, and that brings you to sailing, that brings you to equestrian, and that brings you to shooting.
And archery?
Archery, yes, but not as old as you would think. I think they're actually quite young. Equestrian is difficult because you need a horse and you need, I assume, some sort of history of being able to ride one.
A saddle?
You need a saddle. You need shoes for the horse.
Your own shoes, your own saddle.
Yeah.
Possibly a helmet.
Yeah.
Tight pants, white pants.
I'm sure we've all driven down the freeway past a slightly muddy Range Rover with a horse float on the back and the ubiquitous bumper sticker saying poverty is owning a horse. So I think for most of us, that probably rules that one out. So I'm thinking sailing. Again, you need a boat. You need access to water. You need access to wind.
Although there was an Australian guy who won a gold medal for being on a laser, I think, one of those one-man, one-person boats. So conceivably, we could move to Canberra to the AIS and work out in Lake Billy Griffin.
Definitely. I think sailing is doable, definitely doable, but again, time is of the essence.
Okay, hang on. We haven't gone through BMXs.
Yeah, that along with beach volleyball's probably out.
Skateboarding's going to be...
Any other novelty sports you want to talk about?
Well, skateboarding's joining the games next time, but I think we can rule that out.
Do you know what other bullshit sport is joining the Olympics?
Can I guess? Or give me a clue.
I'm just going to tell you. You won't get it. 3-on-3 basketball.
Really?
Yeah.
Like street basketball, basically.
Yeah. On a half court. You don't play end to end. You just kick it back past the 3-point line and then like you're playing in someone's backyard.
That's like bringing in British bull rush or touch footy.
Yeah.
Actually, I think touch footy, no, rugby has joined, hasn't it?
Rugby sevens was in Brazil, yeah.
So has touch football or flag football joined?
No.
How about lacrosse?
No.
Frisbee?
I think it has been at one point, but it's no longer an Olympic sport.
Paper aeroplanes?
I mean, exactly. Rock, scissors, paper. It will be the next one. But can you believe 3-on-3 basketball? And they just, this summer in America, started a nationally televised 3-on-3 basketball league. And they've got quite a lot of old NBA players playing. It's promoted by Ice Cube. He's like the governor or the chairman of the league.
Hang on. Why waste your time with Ice Cube when you use Larry Bird? A tall, dopey white guy with a paunch. Surely he's a better role model, right?
He is, but I think he's too busy running the Indiana Pacers. But I've watched some of this 3-on-3 and it's unwatchable. Like it is just like, as you said, paunchy old guys with headbands trying to back into a defender and then just like putting up a shot and missing. It's like, why do I want to watch all these old guys missing shot after shot after shot when I can watch the NBA and just see guys getting 8 out of 10 of them in? Anyway, we're digressing. But do you know what other sports you think you might be capable of making a run at?
Yeah, I agree with you. It's a sports where you can see older players because that indicates that we could be focusing on perhaps the skill of eyesight or focus, not on muscle strength or agility. Not that those sports like, for example, riding don't involve any physicality, but I'm saying that it isn't the same as requiring what they call the fast twitch muscle required to run against Usain Bolt in 100 meters.
Yeah.
So the sports I've got in mind are actually more in the school of Cool Runnings, and they're winter sports like curling.
Yeah, that's definitely an all-ages sport.
So the idea of basically going to the local ice hockey rink or the ice skating rink, getting a broom. I know it sounds really disparaging, but you get me. Getting a broom and a puck and that little weird kind of, it's like an old-fashioned iron they use to push it.
It's a big piece of polished granite with a handle.
Yeah. And the idea of basically just a few days a week practicing using a broom really quickly. Now, the thing is, though, I was yakking to a mate who has worked in some capacity for the Olympics, and he said that it's a bit like the soccer for the World Cup, is that they don't assign as many places based on population or geography. So you can't just be the best curler in Australia. You've got to still make a certain top 20 in the world. Otherwise, for example, some tiny little country like, is it Liechtenstein or something like that? They could make the 100, make the 100 meters sprint.
Yeah.
Because you're the best sprinter out of 500,000 people.
Yeah. So like in track and field, you've got to run an Olympic qualifying time. In curling, I assume you must be ranked at a certain level in the world, or there's probably like a pre-Olympic curl off. You've got to curl a few off pre the Olympics.
It's like a hand job, reach around, curl off scenario. He also said the other sport that you could possibly go for, it isn't the Eddie the Eagle crazy jumping. It's either the Cool Runnings version, which is the feet first down the
luge.
Yeah, luge. But there's a one which is the head first.
Skillion.
Yeah. And you're basically on what appears to be a giant frisbee. And if you're going at, say, 100 kilometers per hour or 60 miles per hour down hard concrete-like ice, I'm thinking I'd prefer to go feet first rather than head first.
Shit, yeah.
Scales are bad, but I'm thinking that feet first is...
At
least you can see where you're going and you're a bit further away at a point of impact.
Yeah, and you can use your feet to stop yourself or slow you down a little bit. You don't use your chin, which you do on the other one.
Well, this mate of mine was saying that there was actually a guy, I can't recall which country, it could have been the UK, who had this kind of idea like, I'm just a tubby guy living in East Sussex, in the UK. I'm going to try exactly this. Eddie the Eagle style. What sport is most accessible to a middle-aged chubby guy like me? And he got in based on the skillion. Is that what it's called?
I think it's something like that.
Skillion.
It's the reverse of luge, so you're face down, head first.
So you're on more of a round piece of metal, like an upside-down UFO, opposed to being on like a bobsled.
Yeah, the luge is more like a toboggan with sort of rails, like metal rails that you sort of carve through the ice a bit, whereas the bobsled is like a capsule on skates.
And the skillion is...
according to you, it's like just a plastic garbage bin lid, is it?
Yeah, pretty much.
Either way, you need some big kahunas, I reckon.
Well, I said to him, look, I have this recollection I've seen over the decades, people playing bowls. And I know that every sport is competitive. I know there are experts in it. And I always recall these guys who are the young whippersnappers. And when I say young and whippersnapper, I mean someone who's only half bald in their 40s, who's up against the 60-plus-year-olds in bowls. And I thought, okay, maybe bowls. I mean, for fuck's sake, that's a sport that involves kneeling and gently rolling. I know there's the aiming and feeling the weight of the bowl in your hand, yada, yada. But I thought with enough application, maybe we could do that. But my memory is totally flawed, is that apparently bowls are only part of the Commonwealth Games.
Yep.
So weirdly, it's more popular than BMXing, and I would have thought more people who play bowls are more likely as an older demographic to watch the Olympic Games with bowling than BMXing or skateboarding. But weirdly, those, quote, trendy, unquote, what do you call them? You know, I'm even trying to find my words, those high-risk kind of street sports have more credibility.
X Games sort of style.
Exactly. X Games stuff have more credibility with the Olympic Committee than the old fogey stuff. How about netball? Netball isn't part of the Olympic Games?
Nah. So bowls and netball are, they're Commonwealth sports. So they're a bit West Indies, South Africa, New Zealand, Australia, England. That's about it, really.
So it's kind of like cricket. So that's weird because I would have thought bowls could be a sport that's accessible like soccer, but for the old demographic. But maybe, is that why all the Americans play 10-pin bowling?
Exactly. There's no lawn bowls in America. And I think that goes a long way to why there's no lawn bowls in the Olympics.
That makes sense because every single sitcom I've watched over the years or some sort of broadcast drama, no one ever plays bowls. They might go 10-pin bowling, but never bowls. Like Homer Simpson, for example, would do 10-pin bowling.
And then your European winter sport version of bowling is curling.
Because it's ice, not grass.
Yep. So that brings us back to summer games. I'm thinking shooting. I mean, don't drink too much coffee, ease off the booze, keep a steady nerve, hold your hand still, squeeze the trigger. How hard can it be?
Oh, no. You've got to breathe out while you squeeze the trigger.
Yeah.
And also in your other hand, maybe consider like just gently rubbing your dog tags in one hand like Rambo.
Yeah. Okay. Still, how hard could it be? With enough training.
I feel more comfortable in doing that, but not the one where they shoot the clay pigeon.
No, so to be the non-moving target one.
Yeah.
With a pistol.
Yeah. Pistol shooting with either a rifle.
And they have those glasses where they've got like a flap down over one eye.
They don't have to squint one eye. They give you a hand.
Actually, what they do, they have a cap, and on the peak of the cap, there's like a flap hanging down that sort of blocks out everything but the target. That's it, isn't it?
That's the Ian Thorpe of the long sort of ankle to the wrist swimming suit. It's the cheat. It's the people who can't quite squint.
Yeah.
They've got the little kind of Captain Sparrow pirate patch.
There are actually 2 sets of world records for shooting, one with the flap. So that's got the asterisk next to it, the flap. And then there's non-flap, which is for the purists.
Yeah, I'd probably be a flappy.
You take whatever assistance you can get.
Yeah, totally.
Coming in cold at the age of 40.
Hey, speaking of which, segue man, did you hear about the sniper recently? I think it was in Iraq, wasn't it? Although it could have been somewhere else, which sounds incredibly ignorant. I think he's British, and he set the world record almost by an extra 30% by killing a guy from like 2.6 kilometers away, which was so far that you have to not only account for wind, but the curvature of the earth.
For some reason, that rings a bell, and I've got a feeling he was Canadian.
Yeah, I think you're right. I'll look it up. Okay.
And his name wasn't Mark Wahlberg, for those of you who are fans of the great movie Shooter from 2007.
Or the other Mark Wahlberg war film where he got stranded as a sniper on
Three
a hill.
Kings.
No. Actually, he's been quite a few war movies.
I'm talking about the Shooter.
Yeah, there's Shooter, which is also now Ryan Phillippe TV show.
Yeah, that's even better.
But there was also that movie he was in where the 4 of them, based on true life story, were kind of dug out on a cliffside.
Oh, I haven't seen that.
Really?
I thought I'd seen all of Mark's work.
No, I'll find that in a sec. Have you seen Transformers?
Unfortunately, yes.
Okay.
The first one.
You're not missing much.
Is that the one with, hang on, is that the one with Shia LaBeouf?
Yeah.
Is he in the Shia LaBeouf one?
Do you LaBeouf or LaBeouf?
Shia LaBeouf, I think.
Hey, I'll get you the world record for the snipers. So the Canadian sniper shatters the world record back in June 2017. What do you guess was the distance he shot at? Apparently it was a head kill shot, taking out the...
2.4 kilometers, but how did his spotter... Or
no, it wasn't. Get this. It was 3.45, 3.5 fucking kilometers, and the bullet took 10 seconds to to reach its target. And the preceding record was similar to what you said, which was by a Brit who shot a Taliban gunner in 2009. That was almost 2.5 kilometres away. So this guy broke the record by a kilometre.
How was it a confirmed headshot? Did the spotter, or whatever his assistant's name is, who gives him the wind direction and everything, did he have it through some sort of telescope or something?
Yes, they always have the person who does the measurements, provides the wind and whatever, which is kind of a bit unfair because based on that, isn't the guy pulling the trigger just breathing out slowly and squeezing? If the other guy is the one saying wind this, earth curvature that.
It's really a team effort.
Yeah. I mean, I suppose a sniper basically then has to adjust accordingly and use his own intuition or perspective and take that into consideration.
It's like a rally driver with a co-driver telling him what the next corner is and what gear to take it at and what the degree of apex or whatever it is on the corner. And
a very sophisticated use of the word apex.
Yeah.
So back to our games. I'm looking at curling, I think.
Yeah. Summer games, I think track and field's gone, swimming gone, team sports. So you got under 23 soccer / football, volleyball, European handball, weightlifting, boxing, judo, karate, all those ones. Fencing, maybe, probably not. You need pretty quick reflexes, and as you get older, they die off. Gymnastics, definitely not. Boxing, no. And what are you left with? It's those sort of random outdoor sports that you never really see. Oh, sorry, cycling. So you got velodrome and the road cycling, no.
Shall I read them out to you, and you can just rule them out really quickly? Diving.
Definitely not.
Marathon swimming.
No.
Swimming.
No.
Synchronized swimming.
No.
Water polo.
No.
3-on-3 basketball. Regular basketball.
Told you.
Canoe, kayak, BMX, mountain biking, road cycling, track cycling, artistic, rhythmic, or trampoline. No.
Trampoline, is that an Olympic sport?
Yep.
Wish I'd known that when I was 5.
Maybe trampoline.
We're not going back to when you were 5.
Volleyball. I did trampoline without that soft cock padding on the side.
Exactly.
I was like real deal.
No wonder we're not going to have any bloody gold medals in 20 years' time because no kids have proper trampolines anymore. They've all got those big nets around them.
Exactly. That's right.
Harden up.
Volleyball, indoor and outdoor, as in beach, no. Equestrian, dressage, eventing and jumping. I think dressage.
I reckon it's doable.
I think...
Because it's all about the horse.
The horse? And if we get a horse to like cross its legs in a seductive, flirtatious manner and we can kind of hoist our head high and angle our spine.
I could be wrong, but I think generally you don't just enter the dressage. You don't just go to the Olympics for dressage and that's it. You don't take...
You multitask.
Rocky all the way to Rio.
You don't just throw right hooks. You play the whole game.
I think you
uppercuts, left,
I think generally
jabs.
I could stand corrected here, but I think that generally your jumpers also do your dressage.
Okay.
So you've got to be I think if dressage is a one-off, if we could get in, if we got just the best horse that was all pre-trained and all we have to do is say, giddy up, boy, or whoa, something like that, and then I think we could probably do it with a bit of training.
Freestyle wrestling, Greco-Roman wrestling.
No thanks.
Archery, no.
I don't want to put in the time with the other dudes crutch in my face. just rolling around
ball
for
sacks
hours
at lunchtime.
Yeah.
Athletics,
just non-stop
badminton,
non-stop tea bags.
Baseball, boxing, fencing, hockey, football, golf. I think European handball.
Hang on, golf?
No, golf I think you're up against people who like Tiger Woods style have been practicing since they were 2.
I'll come back to that.
Also, you'll choose a sport that's less popular in Australia as well.
Yeah.
So what can we exceed at in Australia and benefit from support? So handball's here. I'm putting handball down as a possibility, European handball.
Nah, those guys have been playing that for their whole life. It's like a team sport.
Yeah. Judo, karate, pentathlon rowing, rugby sevens, sailing, shooting, skateboarding, softball.
Skateboarding? What sort of skateboarding is it?
I think it might be
like vert ramp?
Is that like a half pipe or?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so. Softball, sport climbing, surfing,
Sport
table
climbing?
tennis.
What's that? Rock climbing?
Rock climbing.
Is this the next Olympics?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. Table tennis, taekwondo, tennis, triathlon, weightlifting. Hang on. I see opportunities here. Here we go. You ready? Equestrian vaulting, field handball. What's field handball?
Is that like keepings off?
I like that. Okay. Pesquet pelota. What the fuck is that?
Where are the next Olympics? There must be some sort of local sport.
Yeah. Croquet? Croquet! Okay, croquet.
That's doable.
Okay, croquet we could do.
That is definitely doable.
Okay, so we've got croquet, dressage, and
That's going to be a one-off, though.
shooting. I feel confident
that
with
only gives
croquet.
a three-year window for the next Olympics.
Oh, hang on. Sorry, I fucked up. This is discontinued summer sports. All right.
Page 2 on the
Okay,
Wikipedia.
so weirdly, though, equestrian vaulting was discontinued.
But what's equestrian vaulting? Like long-distance jumping with a horse?
I think it's like hurdling on a horse.
Like jumping a lake, like a little pond.
Yeah. Jumping bodies of water. So handball's been cancelled. So is rugby. Cricket's been cancelled. So is croquet. So is lacrosse. Polo. Rackets. Roquet. Tug of war. Oh, that would have been great. Tug of war. I love that. Okay, get this. Figure skating has been cancelled, but I assume that's because it's now...
A winter sport only?
And ice hockey's been cancelled, I assume, for the same reason.
Yeah, okay. Well, I think that brings us back to shooting. I mean, I think we should...
hang on. There are demonstration sports. Maybe we go in demonstration sport and say we went to the Olympics, even though it wasn't actually a medal acceptable one. So there was gliding in 36. There was roller hockey in 92.
Gliding's kind of cool.
Surf lifesaving in 1900. Seriously. There was motorsport in 1900. There was bowling in 88.
So I went to high school with a guy...
Aussie rules in 56.
I went to high school with a guy who was in the Australian European handball team.
Really?
Yeah. And he was good, but, you know, as an 18-year-old, he played for the Australian team. So I think you were right in suggesting that as a possible, but he was like 6'5", pretty tall, and he's sort of big shoulders. That's the kind of look you go for. You either, they're sort of like failed volleyballers who play European handball. They're just sort of big guys who can throw hard.
So if you're giving one of those inspirational sports at a school as gold medalist, you'd say, look, guys, to be fair, I'm a big guy with broad shoulders who can throw hard.
Yeah. So counts most of you out. Start looking at shooting.
So should I talk you through the winter sports?
Yeah. So I think winter sports, you're right. I think curling is definitely doable, but you need to purchase the granite, purchase the broom, purchase those little slippy slippers that they slide around on. I actually think sliding around on those things is half the skill.
I think you're right.
And not just going...
You'll be surprised actually how few winter sports there are.
Yeah.
I'll read them out to you. Figure skating.
Nope.
Speed skating.
No.
Short track speed skating.
Well, Bradbury proves that that's actually doable. Nah, joking. Nothing but respect for Bradbury. Nothing but respect. Still makes me cry with joy watching that.
Never has peroxide hair looked so good. Ice hockey.
Nope.
Curling. Maybe.
Maybe.
Cross-country skiing.
No, those guys are freaks.
Alpine skiing.
Same.
Nordic combined. Is that basically where you do cross-country skiing and shooting? That's a weird sport.
I think that's the biathlon.
Who ever thought of that combination? Like, let's do shooting and cross-country skiing. It's an odd thing. It's almost a primal sport, which is like, let's go skiing for food and kill and shoot a moose or an elk.
Yeah.
And then ski back with its carcass over our shoulders.
Let's have a sport that improves our ability to survive by practicing it.
The hunter and gatherers sports of the Winter Games.
But I love it because, you know, you're skiing your heart out. You got frozen saliva dripping down your face. And then they go, okay, stop, lie down on the ground, get your heart rate under control and shoot at some little target.
Squeeze the trigger, yeah.
Yeah.
Snowboarding, biathlon.
Yep, that's what we're just
luge.
It's doable.
Bobsleigh.
No, need big quads.
And last one was They call it skeleton.
Skeleton. What did I say? Skillion.
Skillion, yeah.
Yeah, skeleton. Yeah. Okay, my bad.
And discontinued sports, which is one. It was called the biathlon or military patrol, which does actually sound a bit like the shooting and skiing, doesn't it?
That's a biathlon.
Well, it's been canned.
No, surely not.
Apparently so.
As you say, the sports are few, but there are a few disciplines within those sports. I mean, you've got different lengths in the skating and skiing disciplines, obviously. And did you put aerial skiing down there? Because freestyle aerial, whatever they call it, mogul skiing. Oh, it just says skiing, I suppose.
Yeah, freestyle skiing.
Yeah, those guys are barely skiers. They're just basically gymnasts who are put on the skis. But obviously, big respect to them. They do some amazing things. But I think our best bet's curling. So I got shooting, curling, and I think that brings us to the Paralympics. Where we could be...
You would basically, deliberately get yourself in a chainsaw accident to qualify?
There are easy ways. So there's the
mate.
Bike,
no, don't.
There's the bike riding for the blind, where you are on a tandem bike.
Oh, okay. Sorry, I thought you were going to be really inappropriate there. Okay, so you'd be the support, so you're the team member.
You're the eyes for the blind person on the tandem bike.
Oh yeah, yep.
Or you are the eyes for the blind skier in the Winter Paralympics. So you're sort of telling them where to turn. And you're skiing. I think they ski down in front of them and say left, right, or something.
This is going to sound really inappropriate, but wouldn't it be even easier than curling is being the seeing team member in the curling?
Yeah, I don't know if they've got so you're just going to say, yep, let it go now.
Yeah. No, but you've got to wear those moccasins still and try and stand upright.
Yeah, that's, as I said, that is, I'm not joking, I reckon that's half the skill of curling. It's not falling over.
Yeah.
On those little slippers. But, what happens next for the Olympics, I think, tough times. I think they're going to struggle to get the TV rights. I think networks aren't going to pay as big money as they used to. You just have to look at Sochi, what a disaster that was for the Winter Olympics, and Rio wasn't really ever properly finished, I don't think. It was a bit of a disaster. And now all these, for a country which has such disparity between the wealthy and the poor people, they looked at it and gone, why are we spending all this money when we don't have enough to eat? And then less than a year later, they just got like ghost towns where these multi-billion-dollar stadiums were thrown up in a few years ago.
There are multiple collages online or YouTube videos which are basically just documenting these white elephants of stadiums that have just been abandoned, like in Greece and Russia, these multi-million-dollar stadiums. Like, it's embarrassing. They're just like, it's like a scene out of a zombie film or out of that Will Smith film, I Am Legend. Like, totally and utterly abandoned. And also not even Eastern European cities that don't have as much money, or in this case, Rio, but Western European cities, like in Greece, for example, like the Athens Games, the photographs that document how the various watercourse sports ended up and the tennis courts, like, it's a really sad sight.
And I think that a lot of countries will be reluctant to bid for them purely from an economic point of view. There'll still be a little bit of prestige and whatnot, but I think a lot of it is the glamour of it has died off a bit. It's definitely tainted, and I think the way the whole Paris and LA awarding of the games went down was very sort of lackadaisical.
And I also think that we're united in this world now in different ways. Like, for example, social media has united people. Modern communications, digital technology has united the world in different ways. Back in the day when you tuned into the 4x3 CRT TV and you'd see this opening ceremony by a unique culture, and you would feel like the world has come together in a moment of peace despite war or financial hardship or crippling droughts in Sudan or somewhere. That stuff we kind of see almost on a minute-by-minute basis through Twitter or the news today. Yeah. And the idea of coming together every 4 years as the world, I don't think is as important, because we kind of do that daily now.
Yeah, and I think that's right. And also just from a pure sort of sport broadcasting level, there's so much amazing content available all year round in high definition, high level sports, on demand, all the great top football leagues of the world, all the great American sports leagues, for example, that have great content all the time on demand. You can watch all that. Why would you tune in at some obscure time at 3 a.m. to watch an Australian go around in the road race of the cycling for 4 hours?
Well, that's the other elephant in the room, is that sport in the current climate is fantastic because it's piracy proof in that it has an immediacy to it. But the games are being played in northern and southern hemispheres, so you're automatically ruling out half the world above or below the equator and then half the world on the other side vertically, which means it doesn't actually become a accessible sport. It's like if you're a football soccer tragic in Australia trying to watch the Premier League in the UK, you've got to be pretty freaking committed to get up at 2-3 in the morning to watch Arsenal play or Man U.
Yeah.
And the games are the same. It's like, unless it's being played in your time zone.
Yeah.
And isn't that the whole problem with the US, for example? Like, if the games aren't being played in a time zone that suits the biggest, wealthiest Western country in the world, then suddenly they lose a lot of their sheen.
Yep.
Or shine.
I think the Soccer World Cup is a better investment if your country's in it, because you're committed to 3 games in the group stages. So I think when we made the World Cup back in Germany, the Croatia game, I think, started at 4:30 in the morning. And I'm sure you and I weren't alone in meeting a bunch of friends at a pub at 4 o'clock in the morning to watch that game before work.
And that was perfect because...
Or staying up all night.
But it was perfect because you actually could go to bed, get some sleep, watch the game in the morning, and still get to work at a reasonable time. Yeah. It was perfect.
And you knew that you were only going to have to do it 3 times. But then we actually did better than expected, made it through the next round, so we actually got to watch another game. But yeah, the Olympics is just like, do you really care that much if it's in the bad time zone? I remember Kerry Packer, who used to own the Nine Network, he would never bother bidding for the Olympics. And he was quite happy to let Channel 7 bid for the Olympics because they were more expensive. He'd always bid for the Commonwealth Games, which were a lot cheaper, and just had Australians winning 100 medals, and used to rate its ass off because Australians will watch anything where we're winning. So he would always just get the Commonwealth Games because after all, like, who cares that we're beating Norfolk Island and Jersey in the lawn bowls? At least they chalk it up for another medal.
Yeah, we're winning.
Yeah.
All right. So then, to tie a bow on our predictions as to what we could possibly do if we applied ourselves tomorrow, it comes down between the winter and summer games. It comes down to curling, dressage, and shooting.
I think curling's out because it's a team sport, and we'll need to find 4 other Australians who can stand up in those little slippers and not fall over.
If we go to a trivia night, if we can find a few drunk guys that can kind of walk to the urinal and stand up straight, that's half our team.
Yeah.
We're set.
And polish up the floor with a house brick and slide along and see how we go.
Totally. All right. Done.
Put a bow in that bastard and put it to bed.
Bring me that shiny green and gold tracksuit.
So here's some bonus content for the subscribers to the podcast. Not available to the once only listeners. This is for our subscribers only. This is my Chocs rant of the day. It's on the theme that just discussed being Olympic sports. And unfortunately, being an Australian citizen, I have to put up with a lot of hype pretty much since I was a child about our nation's prowess at swimming. We were force-fed breakfast cereals, muesli bars, bread, Milo, all sorts of food, bananas from a young age, which were all advertised by smiley, geeky swimmers. And that continues to this day. Probably less so on the advertising front, but they're still regarded as national heroes and role models for the sole reason that they can propel themselves through a body of water faster than an American, which is pretty much our only competition in swimming. There was one Dutch guy, Pierre Van Hoogenband or someone who was quite good. The odd Safa have been quite good at swimming, and there was some drug-induced Chinese guys who could mix it with us, but pretty much it's been Australia versus America for as long as I can remember in swimming. And I'm talking, I can remember back to 84 Olympics in LA when I was in year 1 at school. So I just talk about Olympic sports that shouldn't be there, which is basically what I'm ranting about.
Here's your beer.
Thanks, Biggins.
Sorry, mate.
This is my bonus content I'm just doing now.
All right.
Swimming is it's a good skill to have if you live near water, or if you have to cross a river on a regular basis, or in case you ever fall into a river or something. But a lot of the world lives nowhere near a body of water that requires it to be swum in. But running is a fairly basic human skill, and the ability to run away from predators or run towards something that is needed for survival is a fairly primitively basic skill. And I think that's probably where running has derived its popularity from an Olympic perspective.
Well, I think running's just accessible.
Yeah.
It's like how basketball is popular in certain parts of the world, which are very urban, have concrete, they're highly condensed.
Yeah.
And other places that have more space, whether there's grass or dirt, can play soccer because they've got more people, there's more space to play the game.
Yeah.
It's like, for example, also look at those cliched sports, for example, that, say, China excels at, like highly congested areas, and they're playing table tennis.
Badminton.
Not golf. Like it just comes down to resources, geography, and what you can make the most of.
So running, you've got 100, 200, 400, 800, 1,500, 10,000.
And what's our chat here?
This is just my rant about why swimming is overrated.
Oh, hang on.
100.
Hang on, really?
Yeah. 100.
Is this a thing?
This is bonus content. If I was made head of the Olympics tomorrow, it would be bye-bye breaststroke, bye-bye butterfly, bye-bye backstroke, bye-bye medley, bye-bye medley relay. So I've just wiped out half the swimming program, which can be put that baby to bed in 3 days instead of a week, which it normally takes the Olympics. Because, correct me if I'm wrong, Olympics is all about faster, further, stronger, higher, or something like that.
Oh, so you're saying
not
that
fastest going backwards, fastest doing some goofy thing with your arms, fastest doing something very awkward, but which is much more slower than the other way of doing it.
So you're basically saying what happens next if the Olympics reconfigured is that you're drawing an analogy between, say, breaststroke being the same as jogging.
Yeah.
But isn't there that with, say, walking?
Yeah, I'd get pissed walking off as well.
So you're saying that any sport that puts the handbrake on excellence should be pulled.
Walking was once described very appropriately as like a contest to see who can whisper the loudest. What's the point of that?
That's a great analogy.
Yeah.
All right. So if you want to take out the sports where you're deliberately, figuratively, tying someone's hand behind their back, takes out walking, it takes out breaststroke, takes out backstroke.
Butterfly.
Takes out butterfly, because butterfly is slower than freestyle, right?
Yep.
All right.
And takes out the medley where you do
does it take out
all of them?
All the diving except the highest one?
Yeah, but I'm not talking about the artistic ones that are judged for degree of difficulty and shit. I'm just talking about purely fastest, furthest.
But that logic, though, where do you draw the line between, say, the 5,000 meters and the marathon?
I'm saying that they still can exist because they are legitimate. It's a legitimate distance. So the marathon, as you know, was derived from the distance that old mate ran to send a message during the war.
I did know that.
So presumably there's some integral key to the 42 kilometers like there is to the 5. Like 5,000 is like for you to be able to run into the city from here, that's 5K. That'd be a handy skill to have. But for you to run into the city on one leg, hopping, who cares? Like, do you really want to be able to do that?
So you're basically saying that any sport where you hobble the athlete doesn't count. So if you were, if you're hopping, that's unnecessary impediment to speed.
We all want to see Usain Bolt run the 100 meters the fastest. we don't really care who can run the 100 meters the fastest on one leg, hopping.
By definition, though, doesn't that mean that therefore you should include drugs and have, say, a non-drug-free games?
No, I'm trying to keep drugs out of it. I'm just trying to cut out all the bullshit sports that have evolved over time and shouldn't be there.
Okay.
From a pure aesthetically Olympic virtuous perspective.
Can I segue you there, though, just to follow that kind of passion to see fastest, strongest, best? Isn't there a perverse part of you that love to see the drug games? Where basically
I think there should be.
So what happens next? If you legalized anabolic steroids and various enhancements, right? If you put your Lance Armstrongs, your Ben Johnsons, 1 and 2 sprinters in a game which allows drugs, so people have a window. What you're basically saying is it's like the difference between amateur boxing and professional boxing. You're saying in this world over here, you can go crazy and inject or inhale or swallow whatever you want. It's kind of like that obsession with looking at awful imagery on YouTube or like looking at freak show pictures or something. You basically see all these crazy, psychotic, bulked up people. Think of those athletes, the Russian gymnasts that are on various enhancers.
I still remember watching the 100-meter race from Seoul live as a 10-year-old kid, and I can remember.
Was that Ben Johnson?
Yeah.
In 88?
Yeah. And I can still remember him on the blocks just
with the red eyes.
Crouched down. His eyes were red. His shoulders were massive.
It was his traps, wasn't it?
His traps were massive. And Lewis was a taller, leaner guy anyway, but Johnson just looked like an absolute beast. And this was sort of 88 we'd had all the sort of East German stuff, and the Russian stuff was probably around then as well, but it was more, you hadn't sort of seen the really big footballers, the really big baseballers.
We hadn't seen that muscle definition as the norm.
Yeah.
You'd see all these Anglo-white sprinters that had sort of like a tiny bit of bicep and shoulder shape.
Yeah.
But didn't look that dissimilar to us.
Yeah.
And if you look back at, say, footage of Carl Lewis now, you can see like the line in his thigh, but there's not like overwhelming definition in his arms and so on. And I remember Johnson was just a ball of trembling muscle, and he was like a wound up toy.
And he won it by a lap. Like he beat Lewis by 5 meters. Like it was over.
And he raised his hand like about 5 meters out from the finish line.
Yeah. Yeah, like it was dominant. And I'm not sure, like Usain Bolt's run faster than that. And whether or not he's clean or not, or he's just got better drugs, I don't know. But just on your drug point, I think that if you made it a free-for-all, the sprinters wouldn't get that much quicker than they're going now. I don't reckon. I reckon they might get to high 9.7s or 9.7 mid or 9.7 flat. I just don't. But I reckon where you'll see the massive spike is in the distance stuff, like the cycling and
the EPO doping, that sort of thing. Yeah, I agree. I'd say that there are so many people on drugs anyway that are evading. To be honest, it only takes a millisecond and sprinting to make a difference. But physically, they wouldn't change that much.
And there's a lot more that can go right or wrong in a sprint in terms of your reaction time to the start. It's all over very quickly, whereas in, say, a road cycling race, you've got, say, 4 hours to a 1% increase in your maximum performance for 4 hours can mean 10 seconds, and that can mean an enormous win,
Weirdly, you actually might see massive improvements in the sports where people haven't traditionally doped or enhanced, like judo or curling. Like the sort of sports where people haven't felt the need, but if given a green light to do it, might go, well, what the hell? Anything might help.
Yeah. I mean, clearly sort of, weightlifting and stuff is going to have a huge, huge impact on. But yeah, I agree. Like some of the sort of, even like sports where you, like shooting, we were talking about before, where you need a steady hand and something to reduce your blood pressure or calm your nerves.
It would never necessarily be muscle enhancers. It might be drugs that help you focus.
Yeah. Yep.
or it might be muscle relaxants, or sort of the sort of drugs that you'd never have sprinters using, but could be a massive benefit where a surge in your heart rate could result in a tremble in your fingers. So what happens next is if they bring in those games, I'd say it'd be some sort of perverse streaming service like Vice. It'd be this kind of, it'd feel like a semi-illegal, naughty, it'd be like the adults only of sport, because there'd be heart attacks with athletes. It'd be like anabolic steroids or whatever causing aggro and issues, and people would die. Like those various body sculpting athletes that die of various issues relating to drugs. There'd be those problems. So I feel it'd be like a kind of like a naughty cable or streaming service form of sport.
Yeah, but it would also be almost a bit like an extension of the X Games. It's like, oh, we're not the Olympics, we're more hardcore, we drink Red Bull and we skateboard, and with also a bit of like MMA, pre sort of UFC's acceptance. It's almost like slightly underground, like we fight in a cage, it's almost like...
I think your MMA analogy is perfect, because that's like basically saying we are instinctual, we are raw, we are gloves free, we are blood, we are the worst of, say, real wrestling and the worst of boxing, but it's like literally knuckles.
Yeah. If you want to watch some real boxing, watch boxing. If you want to watch some real wrestling, watch wrestling. But if you want to watch some guys who can do a bit of both and just don't give a shit, watch this. Yeah.
It's like Fight Club meets boxing.
Yeah.
All right. So what happens next is there is an opportunity.
Goodbye, swimmers.
Goodbye, swimmers. Goodbye, any hobble Olympic sports. Hello to the drug games.
It's a shame because we're quite good at walking as a nation, and we're quite good at, which is sad, and we're quite good at swimming. But
the way we can just like carve a straight beeline to the bus stop is outstanding.
Without breaking into a trot.
The way we can just like chase down a wheatgrass shot or head straight for a soy latte 3 blocks down in a 15-minute window, or perhaps try and get to the smokers' corner at lunchtime to try and meet up with our fellow Durry suckers.
Without lifting 2 heels off the ground at one time.
Nice. All right, mate. It's been a pleasure as always.
I'm going to go and find a big block of granite and get some curling on.
All right. I'll just try and find an old-fashioned, like an iron. You know those irons? Those metal irons?
And we can weld it to the top of the granite.
That's right. Let's try and push like what essentially... Is it granite? What are those things made of?
I think it's granite. I think it's a block of granite.
Really?
Yeah. It's hardcore.
Let's head out to our nearest Bankstown or Macquarie Park ice skating rink and curl some ice.
And when they used to get sorry, everyone get off the ice, the speed skaters only, it'll be everyone off the ice. The curlers are here.